Imagine a monster so terrifying that people in the Orkney Islands were afraid to say its name out loud. A creature without skin. A creature tied to plague, blight, and death. Something part horse, part man, and completely wrong. That creature is the Nuckelavee. The Nuckelavee is one of the most horrifying beings in Orcadian folklore. It is usually described as a horse-like demon fused to a human torso, with the skin stripped away, exposing muscle and sinew. Some old accounts describe it as a fleshless horse, with a human upper body attached to its back. It is not just a monster from the sea, it is a force of destruction. The legend comes from the Orkney Islands, off the northern coast of Scotland. Folklore about the Nuckelavee was recorded in the 19th century by local folklorists such as Walter Trail Dennison. But the story almost certainly existed in oral tradition long before that. Scholars often note that Orcadian folklore was shaped by a blend of Scandinavian and Celtic influences, which helps explain why the Nuckelavee feels so ancient and so strange. In the stories, the Nuckelavee doesn't just attack people. Its breath was said to scorch crops, poison livestock, and bring illness and misery to entire communities. The Nuckelavee wasn't just a random sea monster story. In Orkney folklore, the appearance of a Nuckelavee from the sea was always associated with the land being under threat. When crops failed, livestock sickened, or the coast felt dangerous and unstable. The misfortune of the land and the terror figure from the sea brought each other out. In other words, it may have existed to give shape to the islanders' deepest fears: disease, famine, bad weather, and the fragility of life on a remote shoreline. This is why it feels less like a random beast and more like a personification of disaster itself: famine, disease, and fear given a body. What makes the Nuckelavee especially disturbing is that it belongs to the coastline, that liminal place between land and sea, safety and danger. It was feared not only because of how it looked, but also because it represented everything islanders could not control: storms, blight, epidemics, and sudden loss, just like the vast sea, which was uncontrollable, unpredictable, and mostly unknown and feared. The Nuckelavee is different from the Kelpie because the Kelpie is usually a shape-shifting water horse that tempts people into danger, while the Nuckelavee is a far more violent, grotesque sea demon, part horse, part human, and often described as skinless. Its name is generally traced to the Orcadian word Nuckelavee, which Walter Trail Dennison said meant devil of the sea. In other words, the Kelpie is the trickster of the water, but the Nuckelavee is the nightmare that comes after the storm. One of the most famous Nuckelavee lore says that the monster was enraged when gathered seaweed was burnt to make kelp, a process used to produce soda ash in the 1700s. The smoke was said to offend the Nuckelavee, and in retaliation, it breathed a dangerous sickness known as mortashine, now called glanders, to the horses on the island of Stronsay, where kelp was first burnt in Orkney. So the myth may have acted like a warning story to the locals: disturb the land, disturb the sea, and something awful answers back. It shows how the creature became a symbol for environmental fear and human vulnerability. Like all malevolent beings, the Nuckelavee, too, had an aversion. It could not stand the touch or sight of fresh water. In one tale, a man named Tammas, or Tammas, is said to have famously escaped the Nuckelavee. According to the story, he was walking home one night by a road with the sea on one side and fresh water on the other, when the creature charged at him. Tammas escaped only because he jumped into the river and splashed water at the monster, thus narrowly escaping while his bonnet remained with the Nuckelavee. The Nuckelavee still feels so powerful in modern horror, and that's what makes the Nuckelavee so unforgettable. It's not just a monster with a terrifying shape. It's a folklore warning born from a harsh island world where the sea could feed you or destroy you, where crops could fail overnight, and where one wrong move could bring sickness, hunger, and death. Maybe that's why the Nuckelavee still feels so disturbing today. Because it doesn't just come from the dark. It comes from the fear of what the dark can do to everything you need to survive.